Yeah, I'm ready. I've just to let you guys know, I've started recording the session. Starting from now, you guys can go with your introductions.
Perfect. Safe, is okay for this to be recorded?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, very good, very good. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Indians living in Auckland and Indian Newslink group discussion. This afternoon, we have the pleasure of an expert in immigration, Sarfraz Saif Shaikh, whom I have known, the pleasure of knowing him, his wife Anna, and his group for almost 15 to 16 years. I remember Saif and Anna starting a small boutique type of immigration advisory on Botany Road about 15 years ago. And we used to meet very often, almost 2, 3 days a week, whenever Saif felt that he wanted a little relief from all the crowd in the office, he used to drop into our office. And then the practice grew. They moved to Harris Road. And for about 5 to 6 years, I had the pleasure of being his neighbor in the same building. And I used to see him at least 10 times a day. But now, having moved out of that, I see him once in 10 months, maybe. But it's a pleasure to see Saif and Anna grow their enterprise. They work incredibly hard, and it's one of the few immigration advisories in New Zealand which provides honest, straightforward, and a very high level of integrity and honesty. This is a real test for people. There are many immigration advisors, but although all of them do really good work, those who are really straightforward and tell clients, the courage to tell clients, sorry, don't waste your time. Your application is not likely to be approved, rather than tempt them with some face and then tell them after a year or two that, sorry, we have not been successful. Saif and Anna would like to take up cases which are likely to pass at least 70 to 80% possibility of approval. And then they work through a whole process. They employ people who are professionals, who fall into their line of honesty and integrity. Today, they have a very busy office in Auckland and also in Rotorua, where they have a practice from here. And today's world, they are able to service people from anywhere in the world. And the COVID has taught Saif and Anna some new lessons of how they can remotely access the clients and their own advisors. You must really go to their office to see incredibly busy, how busy they are. And they go through every application with great care. And therefore, Saif is highly qualified to offer advice to people. And what we have done is we have taken questions based on the questions that we have received. We have tried to screen away individual questions because that's unfair to take up on a public platform. So Safe will answer questions that have been received by us, and anyone who has any doubts, we request that they put them on a text format and do not interrupt the speech. Without much more to add, I must say that I'm really proud of knowing Safe and also Anna, and I also know I have the privilege of knowing all of their staff, unless he has added somebody new since I disappeared from their scene almost 2 years ago. Otherwise, we keep in touch with the people. Safe, we're very proud of you. We were welcome, and I request Rashna, the moderator, to carry on from here. Rashna, over to you. And thank you, Vasu, for being with us always.
Thank you very much, Venkaji. Extremely glad to have this proceeding today and this discussion. Saif and Anna have also been personal friends, have known his integrity, have known his honesty to his job, and I have approached him on numerous occasions, even for people, who have been in desperate situations, and he always has a solution. Thank you very much for being with us today, Saif. And just to, let you know, Sarfraz Saif is the famous immigration consultant and the director of Immigration Advisor New Zealand Limited. You can get in touch with him on his website. His advice, like Venkatji said, is 100%, and he will never, put you down the wrong path. So good afternoon, Saif. Thank you very much for having made the time to be with us today. And I would also like to thank Vas Kunapuli, who looks after our IT, every single discussion to the best possible quality. This is a joint discussion, Saif, co-hosted by the Indians Living in Auckland Facebook group, of which we are close to 50,000 members, and a very, very active and growing group, and readers of the Indian Newslink newspaper, and its editor, Mr. Venkatraman. Of course, Mr. Venkatraman needs no introduction whatsoever. Indians Living in Auckland provides members of the Indian community with a live platform and a forum to talk and ask questions and to be heard. And as you can imagine, immigration is a matter of deep concern for most Indians. We provide them with a collective voice. We hold these live discussions once every month with an important guest. And thank you, you are our important guest today. Before every discussion, we throw the floor open to members and ask them to send us their questions. We pick the most frequently asked questions. Seth, we are looking forward to a very informative discussion with you today.
Can I just quickly have a couple of, I have a minute?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Venkat sir, for the lovely introduction, and to you too, Rashna, for the introduction. It is as Venkat sir said, we've known each other, pretty much the first year we started our practice, and you know, we would like to give, you know, a reason for our success would be the help over the years Venkat sir has provided us through being through his personal as well as through Newslink. So really appreciate your support, and Rashna, thank you for being good, for being friends for such a long time. And once again, thank you for having me over. It's a pleasure to be over here.
Lovely. Thank you for being with us. Venkatji, can I start with the first question, or is
Yeah,
there
please go
anything you
ahead.
would like?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Lovely. Saif, now we just want to make the best use of the time that we have with you. We know you're a very busy man, so let me jump into the first question. Now, these are all questions from our members, so I am going to put them to you without any names, but your answers would be beneficial to most members.
Sure.
First question, how can I obtain a work visa in New Zealand?
Yes, this is a question that we regularly get very often, especially for migrants that have recently come into New Zealand, or migrants who have family members that are overseas, and we get asked this question: what is the best way to obtain a work visa? There are a few ways of doing that. The most common that a lot of us come across are when you come to New Zealand as a student, you complete your studies, and then depending on the type of study that you have selected, you may be eligible to get a work visa. The second, I would say, the most common way of obtaining a work visa would be if you find a New Zealand employer who's offered you a job, and as long as the employer is supporting you, you are able to apply for a work visa. And the third one, to obtain a work visa is if you're in a relationship with a work visa holder, a New Zealand resident visa holder, or a New Zealand citizen, and you can obtain a work visa through. So these are the most common categories of work visas. I would probably not go into others which are not as common. But yeah, if you, like I said, my answer is for general migrants, and if you have personal circumstances, feel free to get in touch with us, and happy to assess detailed information to be able to let you know what options. Yes, sir.
What about people who have the skills which are declared as shortage skills? If they come here as tourists, are they able to apply? For instance, an IT professional or a pharmacist?
Over the years, I think we would have helped hundreds, thousands of people who have obtained while visiting New Zealand, have been able to get a job offer, and then we have helped them to convert their visitor visa into a work visa.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm moving on to my second question, Venkat, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I am an employer and would like to employ a migrant staff member. What are the steps involved, Saif?
Sure. Now, since the 4th of July, immigration have made some major changes in that category. Earlier, it was as easy as an employer having to just advertise the position, provide the relevant documentation, like the job offer letter, job description, and filling out an immigration form. But since the 4th of July, things have immigration have made major changes in that space over there. So the first step is for an employer is to gain accreditation. It's a formal application process. Depending on what kind of business you are into, there are four different kinds of accreditation, and if you fit into one of those, to make a formal application, provide some documentation to Immigration New Zealand, pay an immigration fee, and submit the application. Usually, within a few weeks, immigration will get back to them. Once an accreditation is approved, an employer is then expected to advertise the position. Based on the outcome of the advertising, um, there is a second application process, which is called the job check, where the employer provides all the detail of the advertising, the outcomes of how many New Zealanders applied for the job, what the job is. A job description needs to be provided, what the terms and conditions of the job is, so the employment agreement, and submit a second application called as a job check by paying fees. Once immigration is satisfied with all the outcome, they will issue a unique token number uh, for the job check application, and the employer then can provide that unique token number to a prospective employee, migrant staff member, and they can apply for a work visa through that.
Perfect. That's pretty clear. And this is like it is very confusing to people because I see these posts coming constantly, and you've given it some clarity. Thank you, Saif.
Sure.
I missed out on the 2021 residence visa category. How do I apply for a residence visa?
Uh, Yep, and this is a question that has kept us really busy in the last, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks. What had happened in the first lockdown in March 2020, immigration had stopped the expression of interest draws, um, with uh, uh, with new residence rules to be announced at a later date. And then last year in September, immigration announced the 2021 residence visa category. A huge chunk of the migrants that were in New Zealand at that time were able to qualify. There were some migrants that were left out that could not meet any of those requirements. But about 3 weeks ago, immigration have announced residence pathways to people that there's a known extreme shortage in New Zealand for these people. Which is they've issued two different lists of the skill shortages that we New Zealand's facing at the moment, or depending on how much pay you are getting, you could qualify for residence. So there are three clear pathways which are defined at the moment. But for other people that are not in the occupation in any of the list, we are waiting for further announcements from immigration. Hopefully, within the next 2 months or so, it is expected immigration is going to make some announcements regarding those occupations as well.
Perfect. Now, as you can imagine, Sarfraz, This is a question that has people really frustrated. And by people, I mean our Indian members. My parents are overseas and we want them to live with us in New Zealand. What visa do I apply for? And if I may just add, there are, additions to this. I mean, people could be misinformed, people could be correct. I'm not the right person to judge that. But, people have been saying their applications are sitting with Immigration New Zealand. There is no reply, there is no answer, there is nobody who picks up the phone, and there is no status, correct status showing up on their applications. So pardon me if I'm wrong, but some clarity on all of this.
You're absolutely right, Rashna. I mean, we have on a regular basis. Uh, this is another very common question that is being asked. For the last, I would say, about 3 to 4 years now, immigration has not been accepting any parent applications. Um, we received an announcement for the parents. I think it was back in Feb 2020, and then soon after that, lockdown hit, and then the immigration decided not to accept those expression of interest at this stage. So at this stage, I would say for the last 4 years or so, 3 or 4 years now, immigration has not been processing parent applications or accepting new ones. At this stage, unfortunately, the option available for parents is either they apply for a general visitor visa to come and live with their family in New Zealand. A general visitor visa can allow parents to come and live in New Zealand up to 9 months max, and then they have to return back to their home country. There is another multiple parent visa category where parents usually get um, uh, immigration issue a 3-year visa for the parents. It's a multiple entry, so depending on how often they would like to come and spend time with their children in New Zealand, they can apply for a multiple parent visa category. And when they arrive into New Zealand, they get 6 months on arrival. So as of now, it's these are the two popular ones where parents are opting for. We are waiting for immigration to announce the start of the parent category residence visas. At this stage, we have no idea when that announcement is going to come through. Yes, sir.
It might be interesting for you to know, Saif, that the decision to stop parent category was actually taken by Michael Woodhouse, who was the Minister of Immigration in 2017 at your office. Ironically, he was sitting with me at a meeting and he had the expert opinion call him and he said, go ahead. And then he told me, Venkat, tomorrow we'll make an announcement that we are stopping parent visa category for some time because of backlog. So this was in 2017. Ironically, sitting in your boardroom, Michael Woodhouse decided to make this announcement.
You should have just got me onto that call, and I would have tried to convince him this is not a good idea. Because
But
unfortunately, and we do come across so many genuine migrants that are in New Zealand, and they're desperate because their parents are getting old. There's usually no one to look after them, and they're wanting the grandkids miss their grandparents a lot. So over the years we've had a
I
lot
think
of
Saif will agree that this is not exclusive to Indian culture at all. There
no,
are
yeah.
thousands of British, European people waiting to get their parents into New Zealand. So it is not peculiar to Indians.
No, no, absolutely not. I mean, if you see the Chinese community as well, because of their one-child policy they had, and their parents getting old now, they find themselves so unsettled in New Zealand that on a regular basis, I have seen people from the Chinese community. They have to travel back to China because they feel that the parent is alone, they're not well. It is their responsibility to look after them, obviously where parents are involved. So it is a lot of migrants, and we've got queries from all over the world.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely not Indian or the Chinese culture, but pretty much all over the world, where migrants are waiting for the parents to come and join them and be able to live with them.
True.
Oh, right. Thank you. Thank you.
On to my next question, Sarfraz. My child is finishing school. What visa can I apply for my child so that they can remain in New Zealand?
Yeah. Rashna, I'm really sorry. Can I just add to the parenting,
Sure,
just
please.
something that come to my mind? Another way for a parent to get residence would be the parent investor category, where the parent invests a minimum of $1 million into New Zealand for a period of 4 years. And there are a few other things to it as well. So that parent investor category at this stage, but as you know, it's not very common for a lot of people in the migrant community to have that kind of funds. So you're looking at about $1.5 million, as well as an ongoing, um, they need to have an ongoing income of 60,000 per annum. So if you see, especially from the Indian Asian communities, it would be a bit difficult for parents to get residency under that. Okay, so that is one thing that is going back to your question. I'm sorry, Rashna.
I'll say it again, no worries.
Thanks.
My child is finishing school. What visa can I apply for my child so they can remain in New Zealand?
Um, Once again, very common question asked, where parents have been over here in New Zealand on work visas. The child is turning 18, 19, school, they're finishing school. They no longer consider domestic student if they want to continue studying. And we've helped a lot of migrants over the years, where we look for a university or a private institute where they can continue studying. But yes, and once they are no longer a domestic student, then you're looking at applying for an international student visa for them and continue studying.
Okay.
I've got a
I had
question. I've got a counter question on that, Safe.
Yep.
If a child was not born in New Zealand, if the child is born in New Zealand, I suppose, I don't know what the rules will be. If both parents are migrant laborers, the child may not be eligible for citizenship, although the child is born in New Zealand, because one of them has to be either a permanent resident or a citizen. So in the case of children who start school and finish school, say 13, 14 years, are they not eligible to apply for any kind of special visa which will allow them domestic student rate at universities? Have you not come
And
across that?
no, unfortunately, not as yet. The only exception was made where last year immigration had announced um, if you are in New Zealand and your parents have applied under the 2021 residence visa category,
Mm,
their children will be considered domestic students.
mm.
But apart from that, it is you pay 3 to 4 times what a domestic student pays and apply for a international student visa.
Okay, and they're not eligible for loans.
No, I'm not eligible for loans in New Zealand.
Mm.
So yeah, they have to provide their own funding.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. Okay.
hard one. Seth, have you heard of the delays where, people have been applying for parents either on the 3 month or, like you said, the 3 year, visitor's visa? Have you experienced or have you been questioned about the very long period of time it's taking? Have you any indication if this is going to be sort of smoothened out?
So, Rashna, what's happened is for the last 2.5 years, our borders have been closed. where not a lot of people could come into New Zealand. There were some exceptions. If you had a job in a particular field, you could apply, especially in healthcare or teaching. And there was a list at that time. So it's been for the last since March 2020, our borders have been closed. Immigration has not processed visitors' visas, and the borders were opened on the 1st of August. Since 1st of August, they've been open. So obviously, as you can understand, now a lot of parents have been waiting for such a long time. Um, Personally, I know a lot of people who've had their children born in New Zealand during this the last 2.5 years, and the grandparents have been dying to see them and meet their grandchildren. And then since the 1st of August, the borders have opened. A lot of immigration have received a lot of applications from all over the world. So as you can understand, whenever there's influx, um, um, and immigration has got limited resources, so we expecting a few delays for a few months in that visitors visa space.
Okay, fair enough. Sarfraz, this is another very important question, and I must admit we have asked it of guests, from both the Labour and the National Party that we've had before. And this is, something to do with our cultural system of where, somebody goes to India and gets married to somebody that the family have selected. And that is something very strange to most other people, and I can, understand that. Now, this is saying, I'm going to India to get married. Do I need to live in India for 3 months?
No, not necessary. You don't have to live for 3 months. For some reason, there is this misunderstanding that is going on that they have to live for 3 months in India. It is not necessary for you to live for 3 months. I personally know a lot of migrants who have, their residents over here. They have work commitments. Some of them have bought houses. They have to pay mortgages. Some are running their own business, and you cannot just leave the business, especially if you are an owner operator, truck driver. You can't just let your truck be sitting for 3 months, and most likely you will have those loan payments to come through. So it's not necessary for you to live together for 3 months. But usually immigration um, assess those application based on evidence. And with over the years, a lot of migrants who have called us before they travel to India, we've guided them. We've told them what kind of information they require. If they have their work commitments and they need to return back to New Zealand, um, earlier they at least are able to get the right kind of documentation required, so there are no problems moving forward.
What about people from visa waiver countries? For instance, if a person gets married to a Singaporean, with Singapore, New Zealand has a closer economic cooperation wherein there is a free flow of people. What about those people, Safe? If someone gets married to a Singaporean national, are they able to come straight away here? The spouse?
Yes, I mean, being coming from a visa waiver country, as long as your intention is to purely visit New Zealand, they will, depending on the kind of citizenship of the passport you hold, they may be eligible for a 3 month or a 6 month visa. But when you enter New Zealand, your intention needs to be that of to visit. So if you are married, and if somebody had to ask me that question, if the intention is to remain in New Zealand for a long term, I would probably tell them to get a partner visa before traveling, just to avoid any complications at the airport. There have been times where people had to return back from the airport just because the immigration officer at the airport was not convinced that the intention was for a temporary short-term visit to New Zealand. To avoid any hassles, I would probably suggest to apply for a partner visa from overseas. But yeah, they are able to travel. to New Zealand if they come from a visa waiver country.
Would you like to clarify later on for us in Indian Newslink, Saif? I'm particularly interested in countries like Singapore, which have a high grade, closer economic cooperation, which says that anyone can come and stay here for a number of years without a work permit and continue to work. So would that apply to partners or spouses?
No, I am not aware of. I'm not aware that they are able to come and work. So usually people that come as a visa from a visa waiver country, they usually get a visit visa. Um, Most countries get it for 3 months on arrival, and as they are unable to work during while they're holding a visitor visa, and if they come across, say, if uh, their circumstances changes, if they get a job offer, or else if they are in a relationship, then they can apply through those.
I just want your clarification later on because I get a lot of questions from people from Singapore
Yep,
because Singapore has I think it's the only country apart from Australia and China, which has a high grade, as they call it, high
yep,
grade closer economic cooperation, which is more than a free trade agreement.
sure. Yes, I'm aware there are some nationalities, they have some special visas, and I'm happy to confirm there's a whole long list. A very common thing we know is there are a few categories that are very, very specific to Chinese nationals.
Yeah,
There is like a quota that they are able to apply. If I'm not mistaken, I think there is some for the Japanese nationals as well.
yeah,
Singapore is something that I personally, it's not a regular occurrence, although over the years we've had Singapore nationals, we've helped them apply for a work visa and residence visa as well.
yeah.
But, with immigration being an ever-changing environment, I'd like to make sure, go through the manual and then be able to confirm to you. So yeah, happy to provide that
Yeah.
clarification.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll wait for that, Saif.
Sure.
Thank you.
Lovely. Seth, on to my next question. Can I invite my wife to be to New Zealand to get married?
Um, yes, and sometimes practically no as well. So generally over the years, what we have noted is when you are inviting your spouse from a country to get married over here, um, everything is based on evidence. Immigration tend to provide. So if you have not met someone, then the evidence is very little of your relationship. So maximum, you'd probably have a few chat records, phone records to show you all have been communicating, and maybe some evidence of gifts being exchanged. So the evidence is really low in such cases, and then most immigration officers will look at the entire big picture. So if it is, say, for example, a second generation or a third generation Iraqi family or an Indian family that is living over here, have got extended family members in New Zealand, then in those cases, immigration will take a wider approach. But if it is one person who's living here and the majority family members are back in their home country, I would say the chances are very um, slim for that person to obtain a visa to come to New Zealand to get married.
Perfect. I hope this has provided clarity to quite a few people. A lot of people have been asking that question as well, especially with the 2 years interruption over COVID and people not having traveled. Obviously, a lot of marriages have stopped where they were.
So,
Seth, on to my next question. I have been a residence visa holder for a year and a half. I have not left New Zealand. Can I apply for a permanent residency visa?
so basically, for you to apply for a permanent residence visa, you need to hold a residence visa for a minimum of 2 years. And hence, if you, although you may meet immigrations living in New Zealand time period, you have to still hold your residence visa for 2 years before you can make an application. And I've come across some situations where migrants feel that okay, they have met immigrations living in New Zealand, time criteria, and have applied before they have completed 2 years on a residence visa, and immigration has declined those applications. So it is important to remember that you have to complete that 2 years of living, 2 years of holding a residence visa to be able to be granted a permanent residence visa.
Okay, makes sense. Next question, Saif. I am a residence visa holder and have recently been convicted by New Zealand court. Will this affect my permanent residence eligibility?
Yes, but um, there there have been instances where immigration have taken action if you have a conviction. It all depends on what kind of conviction it is, how serious the offending was, what kind of sentencing the judge has given them. Um, so, usually if it is a nominal fine or something, then people have over the years gotten away from it. But if it is some serious offending and where you have received a home detention or even a prison term, immigration have the right to take action against you. There have been several cases over the years where people have held residence visa for a few years and then had a conviction, and immigration have gone ahead and deported the migrant applicant.
Okay. So, well, it is like in any other country, you have to be safe and follow the laws.
Yes, absolutely. You have to follow the laws, and uh, you know, uh, try and avoid convictions. But sometimes, I've come across people that it was um, they were just wrong place, wrong time, and things got out of hand. But yeah, um,
True. Saif, this person needs to ask, I am a residence visa holder, uh, and am I eligible to vote?
so Rashna, the um, elections website, or I don't remember the name of the site. It says the permanent residence visa is able holder is able to vote. So a permanent resident of New Zealand can vote as long as they have lived in New Zealand for the last 12 months. So if you have been just issued a residence visa recently, I believe they may not be eligible to vote.
Okay. Venkat, you
Um,
had something to add?
Yeah.
yep. Some people will comply with this minimum of 1 year residence. Many people, in fact, safe. Those who have got even residency from the month of March until, say, August, because considering that the elections are likely to be in September 2023, they would complete 1 year of residence. The problem here is there seems to be a disparity between parliamentary law and electoral law.
Okay.
This is a question which I am often asked, and according to Erica Stanford, who is the immigration spokesperson from National Party, these people are not eligible. But I can't say that she's always right, because very often she doesn't read the rules properly, and then she makes statements. So I think someone like you will have to clarify, looking into if there is a disparity between the two laws. I think perhaps the parliamentary law will override the electoral law. I don't know. This is something which you need to see.
But I was recently looking up the website, and and you could be right, because the way it is written on the website, if you have been living in New Zealand for the past 12 months,
Yeah.
uh, you know, I feel the electoral commission they consider them to be permanent residents. So it was not clearly mentioned whether you have to hold a permanent residence visa or
Yeah,
you for voting for the purpose of voting. If you've lived in New Zealand for the last 12 months, you are considered a permanent resident visa holder.
because there is an accusation against Labour Party that they came in with this pathway to residence at a time so that about 165 or 200,000 people will be sympathetic to Labour because they'll complete 1 year and then they'll be eligible to vote.
Well,
No, no, this is a question I
yeah,
think we should openly ask and discuss because this is likely to affect almost 200,000 people if they are under the impression that they are like that they can vote, and if they are told that they are not allowed to vote, then they might feel disappointed.
yeah. I agree, and if it was, I would say, a good political move to. I didn't even think of that at that time, uh, but yeah, I guess this is where your expertise comes in, where you know exactly what's happening in the next year and the year and a half from here. So yeah, I'd love to know the answer to that as well, personally, because what I read, um, it clearly didn't mention that you have to hold a permanent residence visa.
Yeah.
And the way I read it is if you have lived in New Zealand for the last 12 months, you are considered to be a permanent resident.
I've got one question here, Saif. Only a person like you can answer. What exactly, I repeat, what exactly is the difference between a person holding a resident visa and a permanent resident visa? We know the difference between a permanent resident and a person who has a permanent return visa.
Sure.
So what's the difference between a resident visa and a permanent resident visa?
Sure. So usually a migrant, when they are issued a resident visa, the first visa they hold is a resident visa. It has got an expiry on it. Most migrants are issued a 2-year resident visa with a expiry date 2 years from the date of issue. Um, I I understand this was brought in uh, to ensure people are committed to living in New Zealand, not just getting it stamped in their passport and not contributing to New Zealand. And there are for you to convert from a resident visa to a permanent resident visa, which does not have an expiry. Um, um, you need to meet certain requirements. The most common one is the 184 days living in New Zealand for a period of 2 years. So most migrants meet that, but there are other few on the list as well. I think there are about 5. So if you don't meet the living in New Zealand for so many days criteria, you can still apply for permanent resident visa if you are a tax-paying resident of New Zealand, or if you have started a business in New Zealand in year 1, and because of that you have. So there is others as well, but the most common one that we come across for the permanent resident visa is the time you have spent in New Zealand in the last 2 years.
When was the resident visa as opposed to permanent resident visa introduced?
Um, well, I'm thinking, this is about more than 20 years ago when I arrived in New Zealand. I was issued a resident visa as well. And then we had to go for the, permanent resident visa. So I would probably say it might have been more than 20 years now, where, this is what has been happening.
Because
Um,
because when we came 23 years ago, we were issued with a permanent resident visa, and we were required to go through this 184 days for a period of 2 years, after which we qualified for permanent return visa. And 2 years thereafter, we were eligible for citizenship.
okay. Yeah. So, so you still had to meet that
Yeah,
time spent in
correct.
New Zealand.
180. That is to obtain permanent return visa. So
Yes,
when you
yeah,
have that permanent return visa, you can come back to New Zealand even after 25 years.
yeah. It is the same thing, but over here they made a slight change now. So basically, your permanent resident visa is valid till you hold your till your validity of your passport. If your passport expires, then and if you are overseas, you need to ensure that you submit a new application for a permanent resident or get it transferred, the permanent resident, onto your new passport within 3 months. If you fail to do that, then you might risk losing your permanent resident visa.
Actually, I have to make an amendment there. After you obtain your permanent return visa, 1 year later, you're eligible for citizenship. So if you complete 3 years as a permanent resident in New Zealand, you are eligible for citizenship of New Zealand. And it was normally granted within 3 weeks. Now it
Okay,
takes
no,
2 years.
yeah, no, I believe now it's 5 years that you need to live in New Zealand
Yeah,
uh, on a residence visa, and then you are eligible for your citizenship.
Correct.
1,580 days or something it is.
Yeah. Venkat, I think we all came at the same time. So what you're saying resonates with me as well. We
Yeah,
all went through that. Yes.
correct.
If I have a question for you, and I hope it makes more sense to you than it did to me, because he's used some terms, and I think it would be worth my while to put this question to you. This gentleman has been quite insistent that we do speak with you, and I think his question does, merit me asking you. So his question is, my question is on SMC. Now, I'm not sure what that means. I'm
Skilled
hoping that,
migrant category.
Skill
yes,
migrant category.
I thought so, but I said I will still ask you. I was left out from one of residency. So all I wanted to know is, when are they opening SMC? Are there any changes expected? Points increase? Pay rate requirement changes? And what can be expected for the duration for PR now? 6 months?
So, Rashna, unfortunately, as of today, no one can give that answer in New Zealand because, like I mentioned earlier, we are all waiting. It is expected, it is expected for immigration to announce the new skilled migrant category, in the next couple of months. Because when last year, when the 2021 residence visa was announced, at that stage, immigration had mentioned that they would be announcing the new skilled migrant category only after 31st July, which was the cutoff date for applying for your 2021 residence visa. So yeah, basically after 31st of July, it's anyone's guess. As of today, there are no answers to that as to when they are going to be making the announcement. But yeah, we all waiting for that. I know a lot of people who are in that same situation. They got stuck in India or overseas and weren't able to return to New Zealand and hence missed out on the 2021 residence visa category. So this is a question that we get asked very often when the new skill migrant category is going to be announced. As of today, we don't have a date, and we're just hopeful it should be announced soon because there are a lot of people that although have been living in New Zealand for many years, just because they weren't able to because of the border restrictions, they weren't able to enter New Zealand, and a lot of them missed out on the 2021 residence visa.
Correct. Absolutely. And I think there has been a lot of frustration expressed over that. You must have read it. I've read it. Now, this is another question as well. Can parents get New Zealand PR as
Um,
of today?
so So yes, as of today, it is the parent investor category they could be eligible for residence. But for the general parent residence visa category, unfortunately, we do not have a date as of now, and we're just waiting. Um, I know that it was a month before the lockdown hit, the first lockdown hit in March 2020. Immigration had made announcements And if you are if you're a migrant supporting your parents' application, you had to meet some income threshold. So if you had a certain income, you could then apply for your parents. But yeah, I don't think anyone was able to submit an application under that as well, just because the lockdown hit. So yeah, we're waiting for the announcement of when that is going to be open. I think Venkat sir will be able to maybe, if any of us, Venkat sir may have that information of when the parent category opens, and or maybe a question that you could put up to the immigration minister, because I know a lot of people within the Indian community are looking forward to that announcement.
We can expect
Absolutely.
something on October 17th, Saif.
Okay.
Very good. So that means
Okay.
Venkat already does know something.
Yes.
Seth, I have a very interesting story to add here. We were
Yeah.
at a program recently, and there were a couple of ministers on the stage, and one of them actually made a mention in public. If there's something Venkat does not know, it's not worth knowing.
No, no, not
So
really.
with that,
Yes.
that
So
just
and
about
that
says
and that's what, like, instead of putting the question to me of when this particular category is going to open, Venkat sir would be probably the appropriate person to direct that question to. But
absolutely. Absolutely. Seth, I would just like you to please mention these two names. I'm just going to, because there's no other way I can do it. There are two Prezi cards that are. Venkat, do you have any more questions before I,
I just
sum it
wanted
up?
to ask Saif one question, because only Saif can answer this question, because he must be having a lot of
I
representation.
don't know. I don't know why he put so much pressure on me. But he's got answers to all the questions that we have.
Not pressure, it's the confidence. Saif, we have been told by a few employers that the reduction of median wage that has been brought in earlier this week by the Minister of Immigration, reducing the median wage from $27 to as low as $24 for some categories of employers, migrant labor. Employers are allowed to apply minimum wage of $24. Now, some employers have come to us and said that they're also suffering because of COVID. Therefore, they should have the flexibility to offer $24 as median wage. Have you received any representations?
Well, it is not. I would say it is very common. I have a few employers who their main work is to employ farm workers,
Mm.
where the wages are not as high as you know the medium wage, and there are a few other industries as well. But what has happened is these are very industry specific partnerships which immigration have announced. So if you had to see the list where the median wages come down, it is basically the healthcare industry. They've got together and they have lobbied, saying outlining uh, how their industry works, and immigration have listened to them and put the wage rate lower for them. The hospitality industry is another example where the industry as a whole has negotiated with immigration the lower pay rate. So yes, if you do get asked that question, it would be best for you to let them know that as an industry, not as an individual, but as a whole industry, they could then contact immigration. There are relationship managers who are there. Their job is to listen to what is happening in the outside world, understand and get um, both the parties together. So, I would say that it would be the whole industry that are lobbying to immigration for this.
Will you be, as a leading immigration advisor with an excellent record, would you also be, will your voice also be heard if we carry it to the Minister of Immigration?
Yes, I mean, Absolutely. Everyone is able to put in a request to the immigration minister, and we do that for on a we do that for a lot of migrants, very where they there are no other options available for them, and we put in a request to the minister's office. Over the years, we've had instances where although they didn't meet the regular requirements, the minister's office have still granted them a visa as an exception. So yeah,
Okay.
in short, the answer would be yes.
Excellent. I think I will certainly draw on the goodwill that you have built over the years with the industry on the one hand and the ministry on the other, because I think with a time has come when the minister is a very good man. He's very, very keen to listen to the problems of the business community, and he's very happy to address some of the challenges. That's the difference between the current immigration minister and the previous one.
Okay, that's good. That's a good
Ven-
assurance.
Venkat, if I may add my 2 cents here, would it work if we were to hold between the Indian Newslink and the Indians living in our Facebook group, and have people like Saif on that panel, where we actually have one-on-one, face-to-face discussions with the ministers, where somebody of Saif's expertise would be able to bring out the problems not just faced by the Indian community, but you would have a lot of real life examples coming to you as well.
I think it's a good idea. Let's try that sometime. We'll give the minister about 2 or 3 months because he's planning to make some announcements between October and November. If it is okay, if Saif is not, that is a question we have to ask Anna, whether Saif is planning to go on a holiday, then we
I,
can
I,
work it.
I still work no matter where I am in the world. Unfortunately, my kind of work, I can't just say that I'm on holiday and I can't help you out. So it's a 24/7 process, unfortunately.
Let
Okay.
us work on that. I think it's a good idea. I will put it across to the minister and let him first find out what are the packages that they are going to announce over the next 3 months. And then we can have an intelligent discussion with people like SAFE and the minister. And then we can also throw it open to various communities. We can invite other ethnic communities. Do you know, Rashna, people from Britain are called ethnic community.
Oh,
They are
really?
not considered Kiwi Europeans, for your
Okay.
information. They are all known as ethnic people.
Really?
So they have the
That's
same
nice.
issues like you Indian community has. Safe knows that.
Okay. Saif, I will just take 2 minutes of your time because I'm sure people would love to hear this from you. We have 2 winners of our Prezi card. We've announced 2 Prezi cards. This is just to, encourage our members to take part, send us their questions. People are very hesitant to share their personal questions, although they will post it 10 times a day, on our Facebook page. We have 2 winners here today, and one of them is Gurnoor Singh, and one of them is Reena Ranjar. We would love you to mention those names, please.
Well, congratulations, Gurnu Singh, and sorry, what the second? What?
Reena Ranjar.
Veena Ranjan. Um, um, you are the lucky two ones to be able to get this special gift. And I think a huge thank you for to the panel. And I'm sure you're gonna love your gift voucher.
Yeah.
So
There are
congratulations.
2 Prezi cards, each worth $50. And I'd just like to
Oh,
also state that Vasu Kunnapuli, who is our IT head, runs a very large IT company. And he basically works with a lot of, New Zealand-owned companies engaged with global IT giants. And he carries out, major projects with them. So, his ad is constantly on our page as well. People looking for jobs in that field can, get in touch with Vasu. He's extremely helpful. He's always looking for staff, and his company goes as SG Consulting. I shall put that ad up today. So the 2 Prezi cards have been offered by Vasu. Thank you very much, Vasu.
You're welcome, Rashna.
Thank you for another very good afternoon, Saif. Venkati, thank you very much. Vasu, thank you very much. And our audience, thank you very much.
And we'll put up the recording later today or tomorrow on YouTube. And
Excellent.
Vasu, once again, as I've always said, there are many secrets to the success of Indian Newslink, and one of them is called Vasu Kunapuli.
Absolutely agree with you.
Thank you. And another one is safe.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you
Just
very much.
just before we ended, once again, thank you, thank you very much, Rashna, Venkat sir, Vasu, for having me over. It's been a pleasure, and I'm always available if there are community people in the community they have any questions. I'm more than happy to help. And it was an extremely enjoyable afternoon session today. Yeah, sir, I'm always there. So if you need anything at all, you don't even have to ask.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much,
very
Saif.
much.
Thanks.
You have a
Saif,
pleasant weekend. Thank you.
Yes.
Saif, personal experience
Yeah.
makes me know that, you have come forward to help people in desperate situations, and you have waived away your fees as well. So I cannot hold anybody in more greater regard than I hold you. Thank you
Thanks.
very,
Thanks.
very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.